few months ago, I saw a small group of people gathered around a moving van standing right at my front door. So it was clear to me that my new neighbor had arrived with all his stuff. Since I would be sharing the front door and entrance hall with him, I was curious whether I would be able to establish a "may I borrow some almond milk or olive oil" relationship with him or not. Turns out he's a very friendly, rather introverted guy, and recently even unexpectedly made me some fresh soup and walked my pug when I was feeling unwell. And though I noted that each time we bump into one another, he huffs and puffs about his landlord, how he's not keeping his promises, how he doesn't follow up on the complaints, how he doesn't even seem to care about keeping his appointments or not. And there were problems with the central heating and the ventilation and the sink in the bathroom. Now the funny thing is, or maybe not so funny, that another neighbor who has the same landlord had already told me similar stories. And also the restaurant owner at the corner of our street has the same complaints about the same landlord. Now, this restaurant owner, she's quite the chatterbox. So the landlord has been the center of many conversations in our neighborhood. At first, this sounds like regular chit-chat, right? But how does this chit-chat make you feel about this landlord? He doesn't seem very trustworthy, does he? Is this someone you'd want to do business with? The matter of fact is that bad news spreads faster and wider than good news. Benjamin Franklin once said, "It takes many good deeds to build a good reputation, and only one bad one to lose it." And he was so right, because here's the thing. Reputational damage isn't the prerogative of the rich and famous. Reputational damage doesn't just come from major mistakes or scandals that make headlines in the news. It's about you and me. It's in the thousands little details of everyday life. In his book, Men of the Code, Living as a Superior Man, the author Bodhi Sanders says, and I quote, by the way, the book is also for women. The author Bodhi Sanders says, and I quote, "Your reputation is what others think of you." So this goes even a bit further than what they say, right? It's what they think. And what they think of you and me greatly influences their actions and reactions toward us. And it even influences others that don't already know us, because as the story of the landlord shows, people talk behind our backs. Yeah, amazingly, right? And through the grapevine, people we've never even met can have a very outspoken impression of who we are or what we represent. Now, does this mean we can only stand on the sidelines watching these dynamics unfold? No, fortunately not, because what people think is based on what they perceive. And that is mainly based on our presence, the image we portray about ourselves. Now, we cannot determine what they think, but we can positively influence it a great deal by taking care of our overall presence. Because the image people get from us is based on these three pillars: how we look, our appearance, how we speak, our communication, how we act, our gravitas. And as you can see, this is all on us, right? I mean, we take care of our appearance, don't we? We say the things we say. We do the things we do. And especially if we have an open mind for transformation and improvement, we can unlearn bad habits and learn new ones. Now today, I'm only talking about how we can influence our reputation, because as we know, we have no control over interpretations of others. Let's have a look at our first pillar, our appearance. Who of you believe this is actually a minor detail when it comes to our reputation? Too trivial to talk about, right? Because how can appearance be more important than knowledge and skills? Turns out our appearance is crucial because it sends an important non-verbal message. A few years ago, a friend from high school was in line for a promotion at her company, one in the financial sector. She had more than enough experience. She possessed the right knowledge for the job, though she still dressed as though she were 18, in poorly fitting jeans, a faded polo shirt, and worn-out flat shoes. She didn't get the promotion, lacking the right maturity, as her boss called it. To be frank, I could have predicted the outcome, simply because she didn't dress the part. Now, the fact that our appearance plays such a major role in the decision-making by others might seem very unfair to you, but it's a basic fact we always need to take into account, and one that often reflects the perception of others we're involved with, besides the decision makers. Because, let's face it, how could my friend ever be taken seriously when she dresses so poorly at a senior level? Or how could she ever represent the company in front of its clients? A striking piece of research on this topic by a female researcher at the University of London underscores the tremendous power and importance of our appearance. She showed silent videos of pianists performing in international competitions to a sample audience of 1,000 people, who picked out the winners more accurately than the audience who could also hear the soundtrack. So even in musical performances, the appearance of the performer plays a major role. Can you imagine if our appearance has such an impact on others, which impression people would get from us if they would see us in ill-fitting clothes, clothes that are too loose or too tight, when we seem to have a poor personal hygiene, such as an unpleasant body odor or a foul-smelling breath, or with out-of-control facial hair, mustaches and eyebrows that look like worn-out brushes, or visible nose hair. All these tiny little details can ruin your reputation in a split second, especially if they are weighed against a certain bearing people expect us to have in our profession or our position. Hence, T. Harv Ekker's famous quote, "How you do anything is how you do everything." So we can never underestimate the power of our appearance. Secondly, let's have a look at the second pillar, our communication. You might think this only concerns official communication between professionals in a letter, via email, in front of a boardroom, or on a stage. Think again, because every verbal and non-verbal encounter, how small it may be, is a vital opportunity to create and nurture a good impression. Or are you, on the contrary, giving a bad impression of yourself? I know a colleague who had put everything on the line to expand his business to a neighboring country. He's very knowledgeable in his field of expertise, so he gave a lot of free keynotes and workshops. Though this man is from a certain region in our country known for their strong local dialects, and despite his year-long effort in building his expertise, he could not get his business off the ground in that neighboring country simply because people couldn't understand him when he was on a stage. And at first, it's quite entertaining, right, to listen to someone who speaks with a peculiar accent or has a cute dialect, though it soon becomes very frustrating if people can't understand you. And that is exactly what ruins your reputation in a split second. Using a lot of slang, speaking in a heavy dialect, mumbling your words, voices that are perceived as too mousy, too raspy, or too shrill. Also, inappropriate humor doesn't do good to your reputation. Oh, and don't even get me started about poor grammar and typos on social media and in emails these days. Now, the fact that you're maybe born in a certain region or raised in a certain way doesn't mean you cannot improve your communication. improving our communication is always a good idea, especially if we want to advance in life or achieve higher goals. By the way, did you know that our vocal cords are surrounded by and connected to muscles? And since every muscle in our body can be trained, so can our voice. Effective communication turns out to be a lot about the medium and a little less about the message. Communicating effectively is an art. And some people seem to be born with the talent, right? But do not mistake, it's mostly a skill that needs to be developed. Look at me, for example. I'm a huge introvert at heart. And as a single child, throughout my upbringing, I've practically been raised behind closed doors without any social contact besides school or school-related activities. So for many years, I felt like I was socially disabled. Yet today I'm here in front of you, so there's hope for you all. Lastly, our third pillar, our gravitas. How we behave, how we act, what we do. Think of CEOs who never take no for an answer, who call their people unexpectedly to a meeting, even on Sundays, whether they have family gatherings or not, and they don't compensate for the extra hours. Do you think they are respected, or are they feared? Oh, and by the way, if you have such a bully as a boss, my advice would be, run, Forrest, run. Now, if you are the boss, and you suspect that your people aren't telling you everything you need to know, or worse, they're avoiding you, it's time to test the waters and consider organizing an anonymous 360-degree survey. And yes, I emphasize the word anonymous here, since otherwise people won't be frank or open enough to you and you still learn nothing. I don't think that my following examples need much explanation, that they ruin your reputation in a split second. And yet, I see so many influential and less influential people make these mistakes, like being untrustworthy, never keeping promises or saying one thing and doing another, blaming other people, hiding behind excuses, not rectifying when we've made a major mistake or hurt someone, being rude. The list actually goes on and on. I'd like to end with a famous quote by Warren Buffett. It takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. If you think about that, you do things differently. Now, with social media, I can help you ruin your reputation in, let's say, 5 seconds instead of 5 minutes. Anyone interested? Nobody? All joking aside, our reputation is based on our appearance. The image people get from us based on our appearance, our communication, and our gravitas. And if there's one thing I'd like you to take away from this talk, is that our reputation influences almost everything in our life. It influences who wants to work with us. It influences how people treat us. It influences the type of opportunities we get. It even influences how our partner feels about us. And as the story of the landlord shows, the most important part is that our reputation precedes and follows us wherever we go. To conclude, I'd like you to reflect on an important question. What is it that you would like colleagues and friends to say about you at the end of your career? Or what about at the end of your life, at that last farewell? What's the image you would want them to have? What's the reputation you'd like to leave behind? Do you see that picture in front of you? Now reverse engineer it to where you are now, today. What can you do today so that you elevate your reputation to match your career and life aspirations?